My name is Shmuel Rosenberg, and I've been involved with herbs for decades, many decades. Since this is a Jewish audience, I feel compelled to talk about the fact that there's a mitzvah in the Torah that we're all aware of, and that is that we have to guard our health very much. And back in our history, Abraham Avinu was well known to have a herbal healing book. And whoever followed this got immediately better of everything. Sal tell us this. And this was around for a long, long time. And eventually it disappeared. And supposedly it disappeared because people stopped praying to Hashem and they just realized, well, you know, we can just take this herb and skip talking to Hashem. And so it disappeared. There's many examples in our history about healing with herbs. In the Torah itself, if you go to the Ketorahs, it's 11 different items. A couple of the ones that are most prominent are cinnamon, which is used often, and myrrh. Myrrh is a very interesting herb that can be used to take care of all types of internal healing. I always have a little bottle of a tincture of it, and whenever I have any kind of a canker sore or something in my mouth, I put it on, and literally immediately it goes away. I'm not making it up. Rarely does it not go away. So that's a good one to know about. And the way to take myrrh is with a tincture. It's too hard to take any other way. Most of the herbs I'm going to be talking about are herbs that I think are best taken by a tea form. What do I mean by that? You just take the leaves, the roots, the berries, whatever they are, you take boiling water, put it over that, let it steep for 10 minutes and drink it. The reason why is because I think the body absorbs the best in that form. That's what I found. Now, there's many different types of ways to take herbs. There's tinctures. A tincture is just a concentrated form that's drawn out, and you can make it yourself very easily. I use vodka, and you can also use apple cider vinegar. They both work well if you don't want to have alcohol, and let it draw the power of the herb out. And in a couple of weeks, you'll have yourself a nice tincture of what you can find. Now, I got involved in herbal healing. First of all, I want to dedicate this lecture to my mother, who passed away when I was 18. And she kind of really opened me up to being aware of other things. When I was a little kid, she used to take us for walks when we were traveling to go see cows and go see pastures, and my father and sister would laugh at us like, isn't this silly? Look at these funny people walking over to cows. So I got a feeling for natural things, probably through my mother, and also through my own experiences. I find in life that most people do things out of necessity and what they're forced to do, and that's true of me too here, because I had a lot of issues and problems which led me into herbs. One of them was when I went away to school, college. I was extremely tired all the time, and so I went to the doctor. And by the way, in terms of doctors, we are fortunate to have some wonderful doctors in our community. I can't praise them enough. I've never met a bad doctor in our community, and we have people that can reference you to good doctors. And the purpose of this presentation is not to avoid doctors, it's just to learn how to take care of yourself. And you can go to a doctor and find out all kinds of things. The major thing is what's wrong with you. And once you know what's wrong with you, then you can approach it and figure out how to heal it. And often a diagnosis from a doctor is the best thing to get. And obviously he may have, or she may have remedies that may be very good for you, but you can also find your own. One of the things that started me out was when I was 18. I was extremely tired. I was in Ohio, and I eventually went to a doctor, and he gave me a pill. It was called thyroxine. And I took this pill for a few years, and then one day I saw him. I wanted to know, what is this pill? And he told me it's a rat's thyroid. And when he told me that, I didn't throw up, but I wanted to throw up. And I tried to figure out, what am I going to do now? I do not want to take a rat's thyroid, that's for sure. So I went to the local, there was a health food store back in those days, and I looked up some books, and I found out that there was something called kelp, which came from the sea. And basically it's a vegetable from the sea. And I figured, I think I'll try this. So I slowly weaned myself. I didn't stop immediately, but I started taking kelp tablets, and at the end of the month, I felt just as good with the kelp tablets. And that was one of my first experiences with natural things, and that very much impressed me that I could do that. So then, you wanted to ask something? I'd rather wait to the end.
Okay.
It's just so it doesn't get confusing. I'll be happy to answer questions. So, let's see here. When I first got involved in Yiddishkeit, what I call frumkeit, let's call it frum, for want of a better word, I heard an amazing story about the Tasha Rebbe. And I'm not going to go into that story because it's too long and it's really not on herbs exactly. But I was on my way, I was in my van, I was on my way to drive to Tasha Rebbe, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, I was like a few minutes from home. When you meet a big person, you got to bring them something, you got to bring them a present, you got to do something. And I said, so I went home, and what did I get? I got a piece of wild American ginseng. And I figured, this is perfect for him. This is my most valuable thing that I have, and I know it's good for an older person, especially a male, so I'll go get my piece of really good ginseng, which I found myself, and I'll give it to the Rebbe, and he'll like it. This is what I thought. So I showed up in Tush. I had never kept Shabbos before, but it was Friday night. And I was in this room, and every hour somebody walked in, and they took something out, or they brought something in. They didn't even knock on the door. I was thinking to myself, wow, these people have no manners? I mean, they just walk in your room while you're staying here? I said, I think I'll get out of here. These must be very strange people. Then something clicked in my brain. I said, now wait a minute. You came here to meet a holy person. You know this person is a holy person. You've already heard clear indication that he is. And remember what Reb Nachman said. I had a book about Reb Nachman of Breslov. I'm a shtickle Breslover, a little bit. And I have always been, I still am. But, and Reb Nachman said, if you want to meet a holy person, you got to pay a price. It costs something. It's not easy. You got to give up something. It's got to be a little bit hard for you. So I said, you know what? That must be this is the test I have to meet a holy person. I have to, people come in every hour, okay, that's what they're doing, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I withstood that test, and I went, that Motzi Shabbos, I met the Tasha Rebbe, and he kept me for almost 1 hour, and he asked a lot of questions of me, and I asked a lot of questions of him. I never was with him longer than that the first time, and I've seen him, I don't know how many times, way over 150 times. He told me keep on coming there whenever I want. The door is open, and he wanted me to try to help his wife who was very sick. And he told, and when he saw the ginseng, he said to me, I take this every day. That's exactly what I take. Wild American ginseng. I think he said they get it for him in Montreal and Chinatown. And then he looked at me and he said, I want you to make me a liquor of this. Would you do that for me? And I said, what am I going to say, no? So I said yes. And it's not easy to find wild American ginseng. It took me a couple of weeks to get what I needed of looking to find this root, because it's scarce and it's not around very easily. So I made this liquor, I brought it to the Tasher Rebbe. When I gave it to him, he looked at me, he said, "What is the liquid that this is in?" I said, "It's brandy." He said, "Is it kosher?" I didn't even know brandy had to be kosher, wasn't kosher from my level of knowledge. I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, would you please make it again?" So I went home and I spent another couple of weeks and I brought him another bottle of ginseng. This bottle of ginseng, if you brought this into Chinatown, their eyes would bulge out and they'd offer you a few $1,000s on the spot. I mean, that's how valuable this kind of thing was. But that was my first herbal experience with the Rebbe at that point. And that was the beginning of myself becoming a frum Jew at that time. So there's a lot of interesting things with herbs, and it's such a broad subject. I brought a lot of different books here just for people to peruse, look over. That there's so many different areas in herbs, and I'm going to try to give you some information that you do not know unless you're a very experienced person, that you can take with you and that you can use and that will help you just as a practical matter. And one of the things I'm going to show you is you may not be aware of it. It's in the herbal field because it comes from a tree. It comes from the inner source of a pine tree. And it is an amazing, amazing item that unfortunately not a lot of people know about. It's called DMSO. DMSO, the definitive book was written by a man named Dr. Morton Walker back, I think, in the 70s. And this substance, I'm telling you, is amazing. I have seen people with arthritis haven't moved their hands in 20 years. I was once in a shir, and I talked to an old guy. I said, "Look, you want to move your hand?" I said, "Yes, let me try this. Put it on." Within seconds, he's moving his fingers he hasn't moved in 30 years. It does cure arthritis, DMSO. DMSO does a lot of other amazing things. I could just go on and on and on, but I don't want to spend the whole time talking about it. But I will say that it is approved for cystitis, a medical problem, by the government, and because of that, doctors can use it. Once they can use one thing for one thing it's approved, then they can do whatever they want with it. But doctors are not normally using this kind of thing. They're afraid to, without going into political reasons. It's just not the thing, they'll be run out of town because they're going to be curing everybody of all kinds of things for no money. So it's not a good thing to use if you're in business. But the people who know about this actually are veterinarians. They use this, they've been using this on animals for a long time. Now, I highly recommend this book. You can get it online, DMSO by Dr. Morton Walker. And you're going to find out by reading this that the pharmaceutical companies tested this extensively and put a fortune into looking into this. And they were going to bring this into their medicines and use this until some smart guy figured out, you know what, or maybe a woman, figured out, if we use this, we're not going to make any money. So they stopped using. They said, we're not going to do this. Now, during this time, 60 Minutes, a very famous television program, covered DMSO, and they showed what it was doing. And literally, the person who was, doctor that was using this, I think in Oregon, was flooded with like 1 million phone calls. And Congress was flooded with, why aren't we using this? And it was like, there was a wave overnight, this back in the 70s. And of course it didn't come into play because there's no money in it. And America's about money. I'm sure you all know that. And so if you can't make money, you can't operate here. I'm not into money for this because it's just not my thing. I'm not against money. I like money, but it's It's not my not my motivation with using herbs. So I've been happy to share what I know and share different things. And another thing, I'll tell you another amazing thing. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, but I'll tell you anyway. Why not? You look like a friendly group. And amongst many, many things that this does is it literally cures glaucoma and what's the item that's called that you get in your eyes when you have cataracts. Now, you have to be a brave person to do this, but I guess I'm sometimes brave. And a 50% solution of this with purified water, and you take one drop and put it in your eye, and if you have cataracts, it will significantly reduce it, because I am the living proof of this, and I also did it with a doctor friend. I won't mention his name because he won't want it advertised, but he also did it with me. And sure enough, our cataracts were gone. And if you don't know what those are, when you get older, you get a little like black things and dots in your eyes. You can't see as well. People call them floaters, because when you look up at the sun, things look like they're floating around. And I have not done anything but this. It seems like every 6 months or a year. But if you are brave enough to do this, and according to Dr. Walker, he stated that there is no problem with doing this. Now, the medical community claimed there was, and the friendly FDA came in and said, "Oh, it can affect you on this, it can affect you on that." Dr. Walker says, "No, there was no studies that ever showed it ever affected anybody, never hurt anybody." I can only tell you myself that I did it, and what you can expect to happen is as follows: that when you put it in your 50% solution, you take one drop. You know, people, you just pull your eyelid out and you take one drop, put it in, close it, and hold it for about 2 minutes down like this, and it's going to burn. This is burny stuff. After 30 seconds, the burning goes away.
Which burning? Baltic burning?
It'll feel hot, and it'll go away. That's so. If you're brave enough to do that kind of thing, just be prepared that it's going to feel burning, and that's what's going to happen. So where do you get DMSO? DMSO can easily be found online, and if you're going to put this in your eye, get what's called pharmaceutical grade. It's going to come in 99.9% pharmaceutical grade, which is very strong. Now, this can also be used for a lot of other things. I mean, literally, you could take care of many, many health problems. This doctor in Oregon used it on people who had had some horrendous accidents, and literally, it saved, when they had their spinal cord injuries, it saved them from becoming paraplegics. I know that sounds unbelievable, but that's what it did. Now, I can tell you, I once was in a car accident. My son fell asleep, and we were going about very fast on a major road. And I was sleeping, and apparently he fell asleep, and boom! You know, going 70, 75 miles an hour, hit this, hit that, turned around. And I happened to have, because I always walk around with DMSO in my pocket, I happen to have two things: DMSO and Arnica montana. Arnica montana is not an herbal product, it's a homeopathic product, and I'll tell you the difference. But this is about herbs, but this is important enough to mention. I took DMSO and put it on me for the next day, and Arnica montana, like two little 30C things, which you can buy in the health food store if you've seen these blue things. This blue thing just means it's made by a certain company named Boron. It's a very good company, but there's many other companies that are good too. But this seems to be the most popular in America. And
how do you spell it?
BOIRON. You'll see it all over the place. It's very common. If you go to any health food store, you'll see it. You'll see a whole display of these items. I am not a person who's an expert on homeopathic. And I'll tell you what homeopathics are for those of you who do not know. Probably some don't know. Does anybody know what homeopathics are? A few, okay, not most don't, okay. So I'll explain that to you. So DMSO is used by some medical doctors. There was a very famous medical doctor in our area. I forget his name, he's still around. Or I think he passed on, but people took over for him. And you can find lists of doctors, if you search, who do use this. And it's used for so many different things. And it does also tremendously help Young Machlik. For those of you who are not Jewish, that means C-A-N-C-E-R. And they've cured lots of cases with it. And just simply through blood transfusions. But that won't pass in this country. You can't get away with that here. So people who do this mainly go to Mexico, and they have treatment places there for this. I'm not saying that this is an absolute cure for that. I don't really know. I haven't seen it myself, but that's what it claims, that it is used for that, and it does help tremendously. And Dr. Walker claims it does, but I don't have experience with that kind of thing. But so what are homeopathics versus herbs? Herbs are just the plant that comes from the ground, the root, the flower, the whatever it is. That's what it is. That's herbs. And I happen to pick a couple things right out behind this building. And one thing I picked was plantain. Are people familiar with plantain? Anybody? No. You are. Good. Plantain. I'll go back to the subject of the MSO. I'm not finished, but I wanted to show you plantain is one of the most amazing things that there is. And plantain is what you see in sidewalks. In the sidewalk cracks, you can see this growing up when you were a little kid, like seeds coming up, and here's the leaf. And I started using this because I went to a herbal class years ago, and they said, this takes pain away. And it also helps with insect bites. And I figured, wow, I like that. So my father, who was a violinist, a professional violinist, when he was almost 90 years old, I was with him in Brooklyn, and his hand got caught in cardboard. Oh man, I was very nervous. I looked by there was a huge clump of plantain. I took it, chewed it up, put it on his hand. I'm not making this up. 10 minutes later, there was no pain and no color discoloration. He was fine. One time myself, I was playing tennis, and the guy, boom, a slam right into my eye. And same thing. I put a clump of plantain. It was over by the side of the tennis court. A few minutes later, no pain. I am Professor Plantain. That's the term I use. Why am I called Professor Plantain? Because I studied with a guy named Richard Schultz. Richard Schultz is a kind of a famous herbalist, and he has a whole line of products. You'll find him online, his products. He goes by the name of Professor Cayenne because he uses cayenne for everything. And he told us, he said, if there's a herb you like, you should call yourself a professor. So I figured, eventually I got into plantain. I said, okay, I'm Professor Plantain. I like that name. So I actually made a product to help with ticks, and I called it Professor Plantain's product. But so
How do you spell plantain?
Plantain. Yeah, you can send it to people. So, what is a homeopathic? I'd like you to know that because it is a useful thing for healing, and it's not what I'm teaching here, but it is very useful to know what is the difference between a homeopathic medicine, and that's what it is, a medicine, and herbs. And the difference is this. A couple hundred years ago, a German doctor by the name of Hahnemann, I think I'm pronouncing it right, he was a medical doctor, and he developed the following system. he found that if he took a substance, a natural substance, and it doesn't have to be an herb. It could be all kinds of different things. Any type of natural substance that it might be. It could be a shell, it could be a fish, it could be all kinds of different things. But if he diluted the substance like down to like 1 in a million or some really, really low percentage, he found that if he gave his patients this homeopathic formula, that they'd get better of different things. And that was a revolution because nothing like that had ever come on the scene at that time. And we were basically into herbal medicine. That was it at that time. So, that's what a homeopathic is. Now, I have Arnica montana in front of me. Arnica montana, it says, I'm reading it, says, if I can barely read this, for muscle soreness. So, I want to give you an example of why I carry Arnica montana and DMSO in my pocket, usually wherever I go. My daughter, Leah Rosenberg, used to fall and hit her head. And she'd get a goose egg on her head, half the size of a tennis ball. So I read about Arnica montana, and it said that if you give like just a couple of little tablets every 10 minutes, that boom, the goose egg will go away. And I said, whoa, that sounds pretty neat. I wonder if it's true. So sure enough, the next time she fell and started her goose egg, I gave this to her, and guess what? The goose egg disappeared. Like boom, it wasn't there anymore. So when I got in this car accident, I had Arnica montana and DMSO, and I doused my neck and my back because my neck and my back really hurt. And I did it for at least a day, and I had zero problem. I didn't have whiplash. I didn't have the typical thing that people have, and I had zero problems. DMSO also is great for sprains externally. If you sprain your ankle, some people are back in action literally in 30 minutes, where you might be out of commission for weeks. It is that powerful. And it's known as the world's fastest solvent. And because they can't advertise what it really does, they call it a solvent, because they can't advertise medical claims because it's against the government's rules. You can't go ahead and say this is going to take care of this and that and the next thing, or they'll put you out of business, or even worse. So we covered DMSO, and I wanted to tell you about a couple things that can really help you.
Excuse me?
And
Is DMSO a chemical?
it's got a long name, but it's not really. It comes from a tree. It does have. I'll give you the name if you want to know what the name is. Pardon?
Which plant does it come from?
It comes from a tree, and it's the inner part of the tree, and they make it out of that.
All trees?
I think a pine tree, but I'm not positive. And what was your question here?
Chemical.
The chemical?
Everything's chemicals.
Well,
It's considered an herbal product?
I consider it an herbal product because it comes basically from a tree. So it comes from something that grows. So I consider it an herbal product. I forget the chemical name. You can look it up. You can quickly find it out, I'm sure.
How would you use it?
Pardon?
Orally or like just for external use?
Well, as I said, you can put this right on your skin. I said I put it in my eye.
But you wouldn't take it in your mouth. It's not a...
You wouldn't know. It's not necessarily made for your mouth. I can't teach you all the various uses here. If you're interested, get this book, and it's way more than I know, and that you'll find out how to use it. I'm only telling you just a couple of things I did with this, just because I would like you to go away with something in your hand that you didn't know before that you can use and get excited about. Because that's just the way I am. I like to know something I can do, that it's easy, and I can experience it, and I have it around. So I want you to have a couple things from this class so that you'll get excited about herbs. Why do I want you to get excited about herbs? Because I'm excited about herbs. That's why. I want to share that with you because it's been a very wonderful part of my life. And I want to encourage you to study herbs because you do not have to be smart. You do not have to spend years. One of my herbal teachers said, and I believe this to be true, and I've been studying herbs for over 40 years, is that within 2 weeks' time, you should be able to find out 7 or 8 herbs that you're comfortable with that will take care of 95% of your problems. That you literally can. So don't think that, listen, this guy's talking. Yeah, he's had 40 years of experience, and these people know everything. It's not that way. You also can learn what you need to know, and pretty quick too. Now, the problems with some of the herb books, and I have over 40 herb books, the problem with is when you look them up, they list, like, you can't follow what they're saying. They say it's good for 25 things, and like, okay, it's good for 25 things. Well, which thing do I use it for? You get mixed up. So you'll have to kind of search around and find a book that's going to be helpful for you, that's simple to use for herbs. And one of my friends is here, and he's into herbs too, and I recommended to him to get this book called Today's Herbal Health by Louise Tenney. She wrote a number of books. She became very popular, but the book I would get is because it's cheap and I like to save money, is Today's Herbal Health by Louise Tenney, Tenney. You can pick it up online, I think, for $7 or $8, something like that. And why I like it is simply because it's easy. And I like easy. I don't like hard. I like easy. And this book has a lot of different things in it. And one of the things that's good is the index. And I'm big into indexes, because you can find out very quickly what you want to know right by looking up in the index. So I'm looking right now, it says appetite. Okay, so it's got appetite. So I'll go right in here quickly, and it'll say an herb to suppress appetite. And what's that herb? Anybody know a good herb to suppress appetite? No? Everybody diets in this country. No? Not one? Chickweed. Chickweed is a great herb that will suppress appetite. It's better than any diet stuff you're going to do. And you just have, what do you do with it? You simply get the herb, and my formula is always the same, mostly for everything. You make a tea, and you drink it in the morning. It will suppress appetite. So if you have a question, save it. I'll answer it. So that's one of the reasons I like this. And some of my herb books are so complicated. Like, this is Dr. John Christopher, School of Natural Healing. Anybody ever hear of John Christopher? Ah, good. Great. He was considered the father of American herbology. He wrote this. I have a book. It costs a lot of money. This book probably today costs $100 or more. And he's got a great listing of indexes. And he lists various categories of herbs, but it's too much. It's too complicated for the average person. Like, here there's like 40 different categories. Antiemetics, herbs used to lessen nausea or prevent or relieve vomiting. And then he's got a list of like 40 things here. And these categories go on and on and on. It's too much. It's too much for the average person to digest. Yes?
He has a lot of products.
I can't hear you.
He has a lot of products in that book. He's got Dr. Christopher is.
Yes, he's famous. He is Mr. Herbal. He's famous. That's true. So let's see. So about Dr. Christopher, does anybody know what, and who've heard of him, do you know what he says is the thing to take? Anybody know? He says lobelia. It's a plant. I happen to have it here, and usually that's another, in my pack, if I go anywhere, I carry lobelia with me often. Lobelia. And this is something that's best in a tincture because you can take it easily and quickly. Why do you want to know about lobelia? You want to know about lobelia because it's amazing. And what does it do? Dr. Christopher says it does everything. That's what he said. But I can tell you from my own experience of using it for decades that if you have something going on with it, and again, if you have a real problem, you should go to a doctor. I'm not telling you to avoid the doctor. You should go to a doctor. But if you want to do it yourself, and you want to, just a few days ago, I had a really bad pain in my side. Really bad. I don't know what it was. And so I took a dropper full, or maybe two, of lobelia. Boom. Goodbye pain. It was gone on the spot. And lobelia is known for that. It's an antidote for food poisoning. It'll help you throw up if you need to. But if you don't need to throw up, you won't. And I don't think I've ever thrown up by taking this, but it tastes nasty. No. It tastes nasty. But it's something, it's one of these things that I can't really talk enough about it because it's really one of these like powerful things that if you have poisoning, food poisoning, and you take this, or if you have a pain. One time I had a pain about 11 years ago. My whole center of my body, it was on a Friday night, and I felt such a pain. I didn't know what it was. I knew it was something extremely serious. What it was, I did not know. So I took lobelia, a few droppers full, and I felt my whole insides move, literally, like a foot by a foot. Boom! It just moved to the side, and the pain went away. Then I went to my doctor. I had a really good doctor. Unfortunately, he retired, and he knew a lot of natural stuff. And he did some tests on me, and he said, "Sam, you're not going to survive unless you go to the hospital." He said, "I can't treat you. You've got to go to the hospital." And he emphasized this a number of times because he knew I do not want to go to the hospital. But he told me this a number of times. So I made a mistake and I went to my rabbi instead of going to the hospital. What can I do? I won't mention his name. And I asked him, I really don't want to go to the hospital, but here's what the doctor said. "Do you think I could get away for another couple of days?" He said, "Yeah. By the way, don't do that," what I did. Don't go to your rabbi and ask him, unless he's a Tasha Rebbe. Don't do that. And a couple of days later, I went into septic shock. If for those of you who don't know, that means everything stops and your system becomes all acid and nothing works and you're dead. And I was in the hospital at Westchester Medical, and they weren't doing anything for me. They looked at me as an old guy. I had like white hair. I think I had gray hair at the time. And they just figured I'm an old guy. Just let them pass on. Yeah, the other things are good. Then a friend of mine walked in, and he saw what was going on. And he started screaming, and I couldn't figure out why he was screaming. I was still conscious. He said, "He's married. He's got 4 young kids. He's a lawyer." And I'm thinking, don't tell me I'm a lawyer. They may not like lawyers. And he's yelling at them. And so they started taking care of me. and they intubated me, and I'm still here. 3 times I died in that hospital. 3. And I'm going to mention this. I'd like to know the answer to this. Before that happened to me in the hospital, 2 years before this happened to me, I had a tape go off in my head of my entire life, and it ran for 2 years. Everything that ever happened in my life, I could see in part of my brain, and it was going on all the time. And I saw my whole life go right in front of me. It wasn't unpleasant, it wasn't scary. It just was like in the background, going off the whole time. I saw my entire life. I asked a couple people, they never had any answer for me. That if anybody knows what this is, I'd appreciate you telling me afterwards, because I'm very curious. Like having this whole tape go off of your entire life.
And when did that start? When you were born or when you were, how old are you?
I don't even remember. As early as I can remember, the whole thing just went off. It wasn't unpleasant, it wasn't scary, but it was just like, they tell you when you pass on that you go upstairs, hopefully you go upstairs, and your whole life is reviewed and you're judged for everything. Well, everything was right there. It was going on.
You didn't ask the Tasha Rebbe?
Hmm?
You didn't ask the Tasha Rebbe?
Say it clearly?
You didn't ask the Tasha Rebbe what this means?
Tasha Rebbe wasn't well then.
It happens right before a dangerous situation, and you're like, and that's how it happened to me, and you're like, your whole life is shown to you, and then you have to decide you're living or not.
You talk to me later. Thank you. Okay, so I told you something about a couple of things that you're going to take away, so you're going to have something to take with you of lobelia, DMSO, and plantain. So, and also I also told you Arnica montana, the same name, but it's not a banana.
Okay.
And I'm not going to talk about vaccines because Rabbi Scheiner doesn't want me to, and plus it's too controversial. There's too much to talk about and so forth, and it's not exactly the topic that we're talking about. But I will tell you one thing: there is one product. If you are concerned about vaccines, it's a homeopathic product, and it is called Thuja, Thuja, and you can get it at homeopathic. And I learned this from a medical doctor. He said, if you're concerned about vaccines, before and after the vaccine, take Thuja, and it will lessen tremendously the effects of the vaccine. This is not common information, it should be, but it's something for those of you that are concerned about your children, that it definitely does help. And you can check it out. You can look up, obviously, information. I'm looking at a product in front of me that's from Liddell, Liddell Laboratories, and it says VAC, vaccines, homeopathic. And it's got a number of ingredients in it, a few, but the main thing is Thuja. It's arnica, sulfur, Thuja, a couple other little things, but the Thuja is the thing that is best for that. Thuja, Thuja. Okay. So, another thing I used to carry around, because I just felt more secure with it, was I was going through a big emotional time one time, and my heart was like, it was missing beats, and it was like going pump, pump, and I was like getting a little nervous over this. I was not even that old. And so Professor Cayenne, Richard Schultz, who's a very experienced herbalist, he told me that cayenne will stop a heart attack. He says he's done it, he's used it, and here's what he told me. Again, I'm telling you some pretty far out things. If you have a heart attack, go to the hospital. Go to a doctor. But if you're the type that is not going to do that, and certain numbers of people won't do that, but if you're the type that's not going to do it, even if you may do it, it's still a helpful thing. How are you going to get cayenne down in your system? It's awful. It tastes terrible. Cayenne is so hot. You couldn't do it. So, but a liquid cayenne, you can take it and put a couple dropperfuls and squirt it down. And the powder, it's too powerful. It'll gag. It's too hard to get down. No, but you need much more than just with water. You need super concentrated. You need very, very concentrated. And a tincture will do that. That's one thing. When you want a tincture, I like to make things out of teas. But if you want to get something very powerful, very quick, a tincture is the best way to do it. A tincture, I told you what a tincture is. It's just the herb dissolved in a liquid of some kind, like alcohol or apple cider vinegar. And you can just get that down your system. And I've done that a couple times when I thought, wait, maybe something's going on here. I went boom, boom. But it probably wasn't something going on. It was probably in my head. Because most things are in one's head. And speaking of one's head, I want to share another little thing here. Oh, where is Doctor? There is it. For those of you who have ever had back issues, there's a medical doctor named John Sarno. Have any of you ever heard of him? Oh, you have. John Sarno? Go good. For those of you who haven't heard about him, he's great. And I'm going to make it I'm going to condense the whole thing and make it very simple. Forgive me if I'm making it too simple. But he basically, his concept is, if you got a backache, the problem is your emotion. It's not your back. So what you need to do, and I think you can do this with any part of your body, is you need to talk to your back. And how do you talk to your back? You ask them how he's doing, what time it is. No, that's not what you say. You talk to your back and you say, Mr. Back, or Mrs. Back, or Miss Back, or whatever you want to say. Say to your back, look, I'll take care of my own problems. I'll take care of my own emotional issues. I don't need you to take care of them. That's it. And I have a friend, Akiva Eisenberg, who actually saved me in the hospital. He told me about Dr. John Sarno, and he said that worked for him. So if that works for you, that's another nice little technique that you can try. Or you can get his book. He's a famous guy, John Sarno, MD. And you can read the whole book. But I think that's basically what I got out of the book. Okay. So I'll tell you one other experience that I had, that maybe a couple experiences that really got me into trying to learn about how to take care of myself. And that is, when I was so tired, when I was 18, 19, and I was in college, and then I eventually went to law school, and I was really nervous because at the end of law school, I had to take a bar exam, and if you don't pass this exam, then you can't practice. And I was a very good student because I was afraid not to be. And I got myself so nervous, I got put in the hospital. I was just like, ugh. I'm in the hospital, and it was noisy there, and I didn't like it. So I had my red motorcycle helmet on. I must have looked like I'm not. But I'm sitting in my bed with my red motorcycle hat on, and I had a great doctor. I really believed in doctors at that time. He graduated, I think, number 4 out of his class at Harvard Medical School. But he went on vacation when I was there. And it was still my issue with my thyroid. And a doctor came in and he said to me, my name is Dr. Jerashodi. Your doctor's on vacation. I'm from the University of Michigan Medical School. I'm the head of the endocrinology department. So that's nice. That's very nice. And nice of you to come by. And he said, I know what your issues are, and I am going to recommend that we inject radioactive dye into your thyroid gland, and we'll take a picture, and finally we'll find out what's going on with your thyroid. And that's my recommendation. Then he starts to walk up. Now, who am I? I'm Mr. Lawyer student. I'm not letting anybody inject dye in my thyroid unless I know what he's doing. So I said, wait a minute, doctor, come back here, talk to me a little. He was ready, she said, out the door, talk to me a little. And he said, what do you want to know? I said, have you ever done this before? I said, of course I've done it before. How many times have you done it? I've done this 13 times. And what happened in those times that you did it? He said, well, in one case, I think I have the numbers right, it's a long time ago. One case, we found a little non-malignant tumor. The other cases, we didn't find anything. And in 6 cases, the thyroid gland burst. And then he stopped and he was ready to go again. I said, wait, whoa, wait a minute, what does that mean? What do you mean the thyroid gland bursts? What does that mean? Oh, it's nothing. He said, I said, well, how can a person live if the thyroid gland bursts? Meanwhile, this guy's the head of the department. And he said, well, we just give them drugs. I said, what do you mean you give them drugs? For how long? For the rest of their life. And he said, so do you want to take the test? I said, no, thank you. He walked and left, and that's the last time I saw him. I have never done anything with my thyroid. But that taught me a lesson about how dangerous some of the accepted procedures are that are considered fine to do. Now, later on, as a lawyer, and occasionally I get involved in a medical negligence case, you have to, what the whole basis of the case is, you have to show that they violated this, what's called their standard of care. That they did, and I'm not looking for cases, that if they violate, so if you don't need to call me about your case, if you have one. I hope you never have one. But if they violate the standard of care, and that's the question. Now, this doctor did not violate the standard of care by giving me that test, even though he was going to blow up my thyroid gland like 47% of the time, because that was the accepted practice that was of what they were doing. So therefore, that's it. Tough luck. If we blow up the thyroid gland, we did what we're supposed to do. We were supposed to run the test, and so now you'll take drugs. So that also taught me a lesson about wanting to know how to take care of myself. Another time, this is also interesting. I quit work when I was 30, and I hopped in a van. I traveled around the country for a year. I wasn't a hippie because I didn't have the money to be a hippie, but at that time I had quite a bit of money when I quit work. And the problem, my back hurt. I had a backache for like 3 years. And it hurt quite a bit. And at those times I'd be going to regular doctors, and I still do it for the right reason, the right place and time. And I went to the orthopedic surgeon in my town. He was a very intelligent, very well-spoken man, and he told me that I should have an operation on my back. And I think he was going to fuse something. I don't forget what his proposal was. A smart guy, knew what he was doing, and I left and I thought to myself, wait a minute. I'm like 27 years old. This guy wants to open me up and operate on my back and fuse it. This doesn't sound right to me. I figured, I'll just live with the problem. So when I showed up in San Rafael, California in my yellow van, way back when, 40 years ago, I got out of my van and a man came over to me. And I could see he was the gardener. And he was from somewhere in South America. And he said, "I can see you have back problems." I'm thinking to myself, great. He said, "I can help you." And I'm thinking to myself, the orthopedic surgeon wants to operate on me, and this guy's a gardener from South America, and he says he's going to help me. I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say anything to him, and I'm kind of laughing to myself that the gardener's now going to help me. Okay? I said, so, he said, "No, I really mean it. I can help you." He says, in my home, I was a doctor, but now in America, I'm not licensed as a doctor, so I'm a gardener. He said, "All I want you to do is lie down, face down on the grass, and I'm going to take several coins and put them on your back. Then I'm going to put some cotton on that, and I'm going to put," I think he said, "some kind of alcohol. And I'm going to then light it, and then I'm going to immediately, don't worry, I'm not going to burn you. I'm going to put a cup over it. And that cup is going to create a suction. And that suction is then going to make your muscles relax." And I said, "Okay, go ahead. No problem." I mean, I was in pain anyway, so even if he did burn me, I didn't even care. I don't know if anybody suffered a back problem for a long time, but, so what if you have a little pain for a while? Go ahead. No problem, buddy. Go do whatever you're going to do. So that's exactly what he did. It took a couple minutes, and he said, "You can get up now." I got up, and the pain was gone. After 3 years of back pain, it's gone. And I've never had that issue for the extended period of time like that before. I was nervous. I was emotionally upset. I didn't like what I was doing. I was unhappy. And that's usually what happens with people, with most problems. They're unhappy, they're under tension, they're nervous, they're not relaxed. And that's usually the source of most problems. Now, I read something very interesting in a book that I got called Outsmart Your Cancer. And I talked to the author, her name is Tanya Harder Pierce. She's pushing a certain thing in here, and I don't know how good it really is what she's pushing. But there's a lot of different of ideas that she has in this book. And one of the things that I also wanted to make you aware of is that herbs are very good to avoid Yanamakut and also to cure. There's some famous formulas. One I think is called the Hoxie formula, if I'm pronouncing it right. XOXEY. It has 4 different things in it. One of the things are red clover. Red clover blossoms from the clover plant. It's all over the place. It's in your lawn. You'll find red clover. In your lawn, by the way, you'll find plantain, you'll find clover, it might be white clover, and you'll find dandelion root. The interesting thing is that people use toxic chemicals to destroy all these plants, and they don't, by the way, here in the back here, because I looked and got some plantain there. They'll use toxic chemicals to destroy the plants, and the chemicals cause Yanamakut. So they're using chemicals that cause Yanamakut, and on the plants that actually cure Yanamakut. Talk about insanity, but that's what's going on in the world. And so, if you're at all concerned about Yanamakut, and for those of you who are listening to this on tape, Yanamakut is C-A-N-C-E-R, that it's not a bad idea to take, a regular basis, something like one of the plants that help that, like red clover. And red clover, it helps purify the blood and take poisons out of the blood. Okay. let's see, where are we at here? It's about 5 after 1. What else can I tell you here? Just off the cuff. Yeah, I'll answer your questions. Let me. Well, a topic that I'm concerned about, and a lot of people are ticks. Ticks and Lyme disease. That's a big topic, especially around us. That the ticks are all over the place. If you haven't had a problem, hope you never do. But I'll tell you a couple of. I like tricks, if you haven't figured that out by now. Tricks I like. Tricks that, boom, that work on the spot. That's what I like. And I don't like to hear all kinds of theories. I don't want to hear about scientific reasons. I don't want to know the causations. Why not? Because I could spend the rest of my life finding out what the scientific causation is of something. And what good is it going to do me? I want to know what works and what will work. People still today, 200 years later, do not understand homeopathics. They can't tell you exactly how it works, but it works. So that's what I want to know. So with ticks, first of all, I think the best thing is not to get the tick. So how do you avoid getting a tick? There is a substance called permethylin, if I'm pronouncing it right. Permethylin, and you can actually buy clothing made of this. And guess what? Ticks hate it. So when I go in the woods, which is frequently, I have gloves, not gloves, excuse me, I have socks, pants, a shirt, and a hat. And it's all treated with this substance. Now, unfortunately, it's not cheap, but it works. And for a guy like me, who goes to the woods lots of times, and I'm there a lot, I have a farm upstate New York. And by the way, if anybody wants to come visit me on my 137-acre farm and wants to go checking out plants, you're welcome to come. I love visitors. That in terms of putting you up overnight, there's a couple of choices. I have a barn up, it's not sneeze on the top, but I also have my old van is parked there, which is very nice, can sleep 2 people. And if you're a tenter, no problem, as long as you take whatever you brought, you leave. But on 137 acres, you can find a lot of privacy. And if you really want to be by yourself, you can go into the corner where I have a screened-in lean-to. And this is an amazing piece of property. It's one of the deepest caves in New York State on this property. It's up in Montgomery County.
How do we get in touch with you?
My name is Sam or Shmuel Rosenberg, or I have 10 different names. But you can call me whatever you want. That when somebody calls me up on the phone, they ask me what my name is. You know, when you're talking to this, I say, "So what is your name?" "Sam, I am." And I hear a giggle on the other end, especially if it's a woman. And she said, "Yes, what's your name again?" "Sam, I am, and I want to be called by my name. I'm not comfortable unless you call me." So they call me Sam, I am when I'm doing business. But anyway, ticks. The clothing is great, but if you get a tick bite, and I made a product for ticks, if you want to get rid of the tick quickly and easily, and a friend of mine told me this, fortunately I haven't had to use it, and I believe her, she's 100%. She told me peppermint oil, if you put a drop or 2 on, boom, tick is gone. Much better than what I used to do with my tweezers and pulling it out and getting every little thing out and trying to do a self-little operation. This will, boom, it's gone, it's finished. Now, I also used to use alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and that was pretty good too. But my friend said that peppermint oil is the best. And so what should you do after that?
Put the peppermint oil on.
Right on the tick.
Right on the tick.
Right on the tick. What should you do after that? You should not get nervous. Let's put it that way. Getting nervous never helps. Regardless of what you're doing, getting nervous is the worst thing to do with everything. When my father was passing on, He was 91 and a half, and I was supposed to take care of him because he did not want to go to the doctors. My mother did want to go to the doctors, and she passed on when she was 54. He was 91. He smoked a cigar every day of his life. And I remember he said when he was like half dead, he said, "Bring me a cigar, please." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to bring him a cigar when they kill him. He'll die on the spot. I had a debate with myself. Said, "Look, if I don't bring him a cigar, he's going to be unhappy. You know what? Let him be happy." So I brought him a cigar. He didn't die from the cigar, and but he asked me actually to make him medicines because he was in pain, and he wouldn't go to the doctor. And at that time, this was a long time ago, 1988. I didn't know that much. I still don't know that much, but I know a lot more now than I did in 1988. And he wants me to make him medicine, and he's half dead. I was afraid I was going to kill him. I said, "I can't do this. I'm talking to myself. If I make this medicine for him, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill my father." He says, he was insistent he won't get medical, and he insists that I make him the medicine. I made him a painkiller. I still have the painkiller, by the way. He didn't use it all. It worked somewhat. And the interesting thing is, it's now 36 years later, and I looked at that medicine, and guess what? It still smells like it was just made, which is supposedly by nature impossible, because an herb after a year, it's gone. It's finished. The power's gone. But that pill is still just as strong and powerful as it was 36 years ago. And I was amazed by that. But getting back to ticks, I'm going around here. If you get a tick bite, the next thing you want to do besides removing the tick and not getting nervous, I told you I got nervous, but don't get nervous. If you're really nervous, take a nervine. What's a nervine? It's a nerve herb to relax you. And it's very important in our society, I think, to be taking nervines. And every day, I take lemon balm and I take passion flower. Those are two very gentle herbs when I make my tea. And it relaxes me. And I don't really get so nervous. At least I don't think I do. Normally I don't. Normally I'm pretty relaxed. And those are gentle ones. So I think nervines are important as a daily thing to be taken. So if you have your tick bite, you got your tick out. The next thing you do is you take a homeopathic called Ledum Pulustrum. It's a very common one, Ledum Pulustrum. Ledum Pulustrum, I think I spelled it right. And you can get that in any health food store in a homeopathic remedy, and they come in strength. It's 30 cc you could get. They also go up to 1,000,000 cc's, but I don't think you need it. So take Ledum Pulustrum. And if the tick's been in there a long time, what do I mean by a long time? Meaning at least a day. You should go to the doctor, and you should get some form of antibiotic. And if the doctor doesn't want to give a TB antibiotic, go to another doctor. Or tell him that you did a little research and you found that people who take an antibiotic, and this is the research, that their chances of getting Lyme disease goes way down. So it does definitely help. Doxycycline is the antibiotic. Doxycycline. I think it's 200 cc's. I forget the number, but that's what you should take if you have any suspicion that you have that and it's been in there. And even if you do get,
But that's only if the tick was there for a day. But if you got it off immediately,
if you take it off immediately, you shouldn't have any issue because it takes supposedly like 24 hours for it to really get into you. But I still would take the leaden colostrum because you won't have any side effects from that. I still would take that even if I had a tick in me and it was on for an hour or two, I would still take the leaden colostrum. And by the way, I have a ton of this stuff home. I'm happy to give it to you if you want it. I have so much of it because I made a kit once and I just didn't have the energy to push it and sell it and whatever. I did sell quite a few, but not enough to make it a profitable venture. So I have a lot of that. Okay, I think I've about run my course here. It's 1:15. Let's see, and people have questions. So let's go in order. Lady with the pink shirt. Is that pink? Oh, good.
So there's an herb comfrey that is called knit bone, and it heals bones. You heard of
Yes.
that one?
Yes. Very famous. What about it?
Just wanted to let people know.
You wanted to what?
See if you know about it, let people know about it.
Well, there's literally thousands and thousands of herbs that are out there. But if you happen to have a broken bone and you want to get healed much quicker, if you get comfrey in a homeopathic form, it'll make you better, like much quicker. And also, if you're speaking about similar things, if you go to the dentist, or even having an operation, and if you start yourself out on Arnica montana, ahead of Scheiner, just take 2 little pellets 4 times a day, before the operation and after the operation, and keep it going for a couple of days after that. It'll definitely help you. And with a physical operation, the comfrey also will help you. Yes?
I have a question. You spoke a lot about the mental side of emotional, like the emotional side of pain. Have you had experience with mental illness per se? With bipolarity?
Well, I'm crazy. So yeah. No, I'm joking. I'm not any crazier than anybody else. What do you want? The question for those who can't hear this is on tape is, what about emotional mental illness? What about that? What specifically do you want to know?
Have you had experience with using herbs for someone that is taking medication for bipolarity, schizophrenia?
For what?
OCD, bipolarity, real mental illness?
See here, I have a book in front of me called Homeopathic Medicine for Mental Health by Trevor Smith, a self-guide to remedies that can restore calm and happiness. This is a very good reference for that kind of thing, but I'll tell you, when I was in my 30s, young 30s, I used to play the cello in an orchestra. No, I wasn't good. I'm very good on the flute, but the cello I just learned, and I was playing in an orchestra, and everybody around me was nervous. And they were in their 40s, 30s, and you know why they were nervous? Because they had kids, they had to make a living, they were nervous. It wasn't easy. And I said, I'm not happy here. Everybody's just too wired up here. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married at the time. I wasn't at all nervous. I woke up every day at 10 a.m. I did whatever I wanted to do. I wasn't in that category, and I wasn't happy being there. So I checked into the senior citizen orchestra. The average age was about 84. And I walked in with my cello, and they said, "Sam, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, you people seem pretty relaxed." I think that's what I said. And I want to try to figure out how is it that you're so relaxed? Because I would like to be so relaxed. And they said, well, the trick to being relaxed, I forgot who told me this, but he told me this right on the spot. He said, the trick to being relaxed and not being nervous and upset is when anything happens, whatever it is, anything happens, we just accept it. That's it. And that was something I learned at that point. I hope I've learned it. Is that when something happens, if you accept what happens, there's no reason to be not relaxed. The reason that we're not relaxed and that we have so many problems is when things happen. This is my view, and that was this person's view, is that we don't accept it. We fight it. We don't like it. We have an attitude towards it, whatever. Instead of just having gams b'tova, it's all for the best, whatever. That's what I think causes more problems in the situation. My son, speaking of mental things, my youngest son was in a cheder, Jewish class. Over 50% of the kids were on Ritalin. Over 50%. And my son was a nervous type, not nervous, but he was fidgety all the time. He was doing this, he was doing that, he was always pulling things apart, breaking things. I would not put him on anything, and I never did. And to this day, he thanks me. He thanks me because he knew the other kids were on Ritalin, some of his friends were, that I didn't put him on that kind of a thing. And I really did not want to. Did I answer your question? Yes?
It's a big topic, but,
Speak as loud as you can.
it's a big topic, but so many people want to know about the digestion issues. Like, can you speak all about the
Digestion issues.
herbs that are good for digestion?
Well, I'm not a doctor. You know, I'm Professor Plantain, who happens to be a flute player and a lawyer, and my name is really Sam I Am. So you're sure you want to ask me? The first thing I might say is that there's a product out called apple cider vinegar. I think that's the first thing I would try. And there's a old time healer and health food type of person called John Bragg, B-R-A-G-G. And I think his products are still in the grocery store, and you can order them, even if they're not, you'll find them. And he's got a bunch of stuff out, I think, that will take care of those kind of issues. That apple cider vinegar, and then he's also got something else out, if I can think of the name of it. I think he called Bragg's Liquids. They're amino acids. And you can use that as a substitute for tamari. And I would try that kind of thing.
Or before the meal, like when should one take it?
Well, first thing in the morning, I would take. First thing in the morning, make a big glass of water. I do that, by the way, and I think it does help. Yes.
What's your best recommendation for fungus on fingers and toenails? Fungus on fingers
You
and
know,
toenails.
okay, the question is fungus on the toenails.
Or fingers.
If anybody has a remedy, I'd like to hear it. If anybody here knows about that. I have not found a cure, but I can tell you that DMSO helps. It does help because I've tried this consistently on my own. And I found that it didn't cure it, but I'd say it's 60%, but it's not gone. So I don't know.
Iodine might work better.
I don't know. Have you ever used it?
Yeah.
And it works?
Works, but fungus on the nails, to be honest, it doesn't work only topically. You have to do it from inside out also. If you do both, it works.
What do you mean by inside out?
No, if you take out sugar and everything that makes the bad microbes to live, they live on back. It doesn't work only from outside, it also from inside.
So what do you have to do inside?
Inside is the diet and everything. I do whatever, salt water, anything that's chloride of silver, any such type idea, but it has to go with the diet together.
So he's saying that
If you eat refined sugar, nothing's gonna work on long term.
if you're eating sugar,
Refined sugar on long term, nothing's gonna work.
okay. Yes.
You spoke about using kelp instead of thyroxine. Is it your experience that kelp could completely negate the need for a thyroid supplement for someone who's
Well, I can only tell you what it did for me. I got rid of my thyroid medication and just took kelp. Oh, another trick that's a really good trick. If you've ever been in a health food store and you saw kelp, plant kelp in packages, if you take a bunch of kelp, whenever you're making cereals, soups, rice, grains, and you cook it with the kelp. Anybody do that here, by the way? Anybody doing that? Well, this is a really good one. I've been doing this for years. If you cook it with the kelp, the nutrients of the kelp will be absorbed in the food, and you're going to be getting lots of C vitamins and minerals that your body may not get. And I think that was my problem when I was out in Ohio. We were not near the ocean, where naturally things would be grown. The vegetables would absorb the kelp and would absorb the nutrients from the sea, and so I wasn't getting that. So a good way to do that is to make sure you use that in your food. Don't eat the kelp itself, because it's going to taste like rubber, and all the nutrients got absorbed into the food of it. You can throw the kelp out. Yes, Shrai.
Migraine headaches?
Migraine headaches. Well, the remedy that I always use for that, when I've had it, do you have one right now?
No, I know people who do.
Okay. There's a pressure point in the hand. If you hold your hand between your thumb and first finger and go down about 1.5 inches, and you squeeze it so hard that it hurts, and you hold it for 30 seconds on both hands, it often relieves headaches. That's the only trick I know for that.
Can you show us again, please? Yeah. Can you show us again?
Do you see what I'm doing?
Also, making sure to drink enough water.
I'll show you after. I'll show you after.
Is there such a thing as too much kelp if you were using a shredded powder type thing?
Well, too much anything isn't good. I mean, just use a normal amount.
Is there? I mean, what's a normal amount?
Well, I wouldn't be spreading that all over my food.
Okay.
I would take a piece and just put it when I'm cooking, and that's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Skin rashes, itchy skin, rashes. Rash on skin.
Itchy skin. Okay. Plantain. Plantain, I just didn't mention, if you chew it up and put it on your skin for an insect bite, it will lessen, if not make it disappear, the itching with plantain. If you have it really bad, you juice the plantain and put it on. But this plantain has it's stringy. So you got to pull the strings out of the plantain before you do that.
Yeah, the word over that's going to help them.
You
I
got
don't know
to
how
pull
to do
these
this.
things out. You got to pull that out. If you
Get rid of it.
Yeah, if you pull out the strings, you could eat the plantain. By the way, plantain, the stem that comes out of it, that stem is what's used, what's the name of that? It's used in health food stores to clean out your insides. What's the name of that? What's that product that they use, the plantain? forget the name.
Senna?
Pardon?
Senna?
Senna? No. Senna is another one that's good too. But no. But those seeds, you'll psyllium seeds.
Oh, Facilium.
Psyllium is what it is. That comes from the plantain plant. If you'll see, there's a lot of products you'll see psyllium on it. That's what that is.
High blood pressure.
Psyllium husk. Is that the same thing? I have something called psyllium husk.
Yes.
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 That's from the plantain?
That's from the plantain plant. It's everywhere. Yes.
Is there anything for high blood pressure?
Good question. My friend here turned me on to something very good for high blood pressure.
What's his name?
And it is, again, you're supposed to go to your doctor and take chemical medicine and maybe have an operation too. But if you don't want to do that, olive leaf. Olive leaf is really good for high blood pressure, and it works.
How do you take it?
Tea. You get the leaves and you make a tea. Oh, for those of you who are not familiar with the herbal world, you want to find a supplier where you can buy herbs. And that can be an issue too. And one place that I go to, I have been going to for years, I knew the lady who started it, she's no longer living. But I found it consistent, reasonably priced, and they mail it within a few days, and it's called Jean's Greens. Jeans, Greens, Greens. And they have most every herb you can think of. I've always found it fresh. They're nice to deal with, and if you want to speak to somebody on the phone, they'll talk to you right on the phone and place your order. Or you can do it online if you want.
There's
Yes.
also something called mountain rose. I never mountain
Speak
rose.
up, please.
There's also a company called Mountain Rose that I know people who
Oh, Mountain Rose. I used to go to herbal gatherings with the lady who started that. By the way, there used to be wonderful herbal gatherings. That's where I learned a lot of my stuff back in the 80s. There used to be in Massachusetts every summer for like a week. There were herbalists who taught different subjects on herbs. It was really fun and really interesting people. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Maybe you should start over there.
Maybe we could, on my farm, if there's enough people who are interested, we could do something to do, maybe whoever is interested to teach whatever subject you're interested. You don't have to teach herbs. Everybody could teach something different if you want.
Constipation.
Constipation. That's a great subject. And what do you want me to tell you? I can tell you whatever you want.
How to avoid it, and if you get it,
How to avoid constipation. Okay. By Sam Ian. Do not eat meat. That's number one. I have not had constipation in over 40 years, the Ayin Hara, because I haven't eaten meat in over 40 years. I think that's the biggest source of constipation. Now, if you're worried about protein, look at me. I'm not a young guy. I climb up mountains. I don't seem to be lacking for any strength or energy. I lift weights. So this idea about protein and that you need protein is a line of, I won't say, that you don't need it. It's absolutely oversold. It's unnecessary. Not only is it unnecessary, but it hurts people. Meat definitely hurts people, unless you're a ditch digger, or you use your body 8 hours a day, then you may need it. You may need that strong source from protein, but almost everybody does not need it. You just don't need it. But if you're gonna eat it anyway, and you wanna go to the bathroom, this is the one herb I learned from my father. He wasn't an herbalist, but I remember him when I was a kid saying he's going to take some Cascara sagrada. And I was always mystified by, what a name. So I said, what is that? I was always thinking to myself, I'm like 9 years old. He said, gonna get some Casera Sagrada. That is one powerful item that you will go to the bathroom. Boom, you definitely will go to the bathroom.
What's the first word again?
C-A-S-C-A-R-A, Grada, G-R-A-D-A, I believe. Yes, now there's much more gentle things that you could take than that. That's not the only thing to take. There's a whole...
Cyanity?
Now, probably a nice thing to take would be the psyllium seeds. If you can find that in the health food store. The psyllium seeds, the husk of the plantain plant, that cleans out your inside.
But I have the person who has the constipation cannot have any fiber because they just went through a colon surgery. So fiber is out for 6 months. So the problem of the constipation is very...
Well, then Casera Sagrada in a liquid form. You can take that.
But the psyllium is not an option.
No, not in that way, no. No, unless you get it in a liquid form. You might be able to.
Carpal tunnel, the wrist. DMSO can help them?
I'm a little uncomfortable in this line of question because now you're speaking to me like a doctor. I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't treat people's problems. I just want to teach you how to take care of yourself. So, if you're asking, I have, a specific medical condition, you should go to a doctor.
But they offer surgery, but without
Pardon?
surgery. They offer surgery, but we don't want to do surgery.
What exactly is the issue?
It's like pain like in the wrist. It's like something blocking the nerve.
You have it now?
No, that's me. It's for my wife.
Get this.
DMSO.
Yes. This is your answer for a lot of things.
Sounds like cortisone.
Pardon?
Sounds like cortisone.
Cortisone.
Sounds like cortisone.
Oh, you do not want cortisone.
I know, but they marketed it as a magic pill. If you have eczema, put on cortisone. If you have inflammation, do cortisone. But of course, you lose more than you gain. So I'm just.
Well, this doesn't cost hardly anything. And there's no side effects, except that your breath may smell a little like garlic. It's very powerful. And if you're going to put this on your skin, you should get it. You should buy it 70% DMSO, 30% aloe vera, because aloe vera is good on your skin. You do not want to put 100%, 99% on your skin. It's way too strong. Don't put that kind of strength on your skin. So you want a 70-30 mix. And usually it comes that way in a roll-on. And they usually cost about anywhere from 12 to 15 bucks. And you can find it readily online. A lot of people get this today. I mean, I don't know how many, a lot of people, but I'm sure 0.5% of the population knows about it.
Is this good for people after a stroke also, to make the blood circulation? People that had a stroke, they can't move the fingers, they can't, is this good for them also?
I don't know.
Arthritis or something like this, and they have 10 years.
Okay, I think we had a nice little class here. Thank you for your attention, and I do like phone calls and visits, and they don't need to be scheduled. If you want to stop over